Good afternoon, Marines. This is Staff Sergeant Perry with Marine Corps Engineer School. Today we're going to be learning about how to solder components onto our circuit cards. What we want you guys to get to at this point in this class is to be able to solder all of these components on this circuit card. So what's cool about our circuit cards is they're pretty dummy proof. Each one of them are labeled with what you're going to be using, and actually most of them have the specific component that it's going to use, right? So C11 is going to refer to a capacitor like we're using today. So we're going to take this capacitor and then we're going to place it on top of our circuit card here, because really what I'm trying to do at this point is trying to get that 90-degree bend from my leads. I want it to turn perfectly 90 degrees and go in the holes of my circuit card so I can see it on the back. So I'll take it here. I like to take my needle nose pliers, pinch it right about where it's going to bend at, and so now I know that's where I want my 90 degrees to be. So I'm going to go ahead now that it's pinched and I can bend it that 90 degrees. So for the other side I can do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it because I've done this before and do the same thing to it. Hopefully they're about even. You'll know once we place it in the hole here. So I'm just placing my leads through the two holes and placing it all the way through. So when placing my leads through the holes, I don't need my capacitor, or I don't even want my capacitor to be touching the circuit card, because these things are going to get hot. All of these components here in my circuit card are going to get hot. That's why we're using solder. We don't want to place it completely to where it's touching the circuit card. So now that I know I have my good insulation gap, or just gap in general, I'm going to go ahead and take the back of this and go ahead and bend them, just to make sure that my capacitor is going to stay in place. So I'm not doing exactly 90 degrees. You can kind of feel it with your fingers on whether it's actually tightening or not, but I'm going to go ahead and do that and just check my work and make sure I didn't screw with my capacitor in any way. So it's 90 degrees. They're both about even on both sides, so I'm good to go ahead and grab my version of my helping hands. So what I want to do before actually placing it in my helping hands, I'm going to place flux on both sides of my circuit card. Yeah, we're not using that much solder. Yeah, we're not going to use that much heat either on these things, but the flux is just going to help spread that solder around like it has every time. The rule of thumb when soldering is to always use flux. Always. And like we've been talking before, more flux doesn't hurt. Sometimes it makes it a little bit harder to see what you're doing, of course. But it can never hurt to place more on. So now that each terminal has flux on there, at least enough to where I can see that there's flux, I can go ahead and place it in here. I'm going to place it to the side closer to you guys so you can see what we're doing here. All right. So now that it's nice and steady, I can go ahead and grab my solder, grab my soldering iron, follow those steps we always follow, my wool stab and my sponge wipe. All right. So now, when using the circuit card, I always need a heat bridge. Always, always, always. But circuit cards, I don't make that big of a heat bridge. I can just get a nice tiny one. Before I place any heat onto my circuit card, you need to know a couple rules. One, we just talked about it. You don't really use that much solder on these things because it's really just filling a hole. That's really all it's doing, right? But also when it comes to applying heat, you never want to apply it for more than like 3 to 4 seconds. Okay, you're going to be able to see, hopefully, the solder fill up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in this video, but you're going to try it for yourself. I almost want a volcano effect to happen with my solder. So that's what I'm going to aim for here. So now that I have my heat bridge, I can go ahead and apply that heat to my wire, apply some solder, and I can already see that volcano effect with that one. So now I'm going to go ahead. I like to add just a little bit more solder to my heat bridge before I do the other one. It's just going to make it a little bit easier for me. Applying my heat yet again, applying some solder, and removing. So before I show you the other side or show you how we evaluate it, I'm going to go ahead and clip off my excess leads here using my diagonal pliers. So now I'm going to look at the front first. More often than not, we look at the front of your guys's first. So like I said before, what we're looking for is the gap between my component and the card itself, as well as the volcano effect happening on both sides, which I have here. I know it's hard for you guys to see, but to understand the volcano effect, it almost looks like it's squirting out from the bottom of my card, or just from the card itself, and onto the lead just a little bit. It doesn't need to be a lot, but you can see it. It'll be pretty clear to you when you don't have enough solder. Okay, and we want that same effect to be happening on the back. I could already see it before, but just so you guys can see it now, I almost see this. You barely even see the wire because the solder is already leading up towards it. So, like every other component that we've done in this class, or terminal, or any type of soldering, go ahead and practice for it yourself. We have a whole circuit card that you guys can use just as practice. Once you guys are done with that, bring it to the instructor. We'll evaluate it for you, let you know where you guys screwed up, how to help you guys out, and if you have any questions, just ask them or put them in YouTube. Thank you.